It may look a bit strange outside, but we are the same old seers inside. This is going around the building, some display cases that we wanted just for the fun of it, again, to liven the street. Now they are being filled with display elements. And the main sidewalk, and you can sense the scale and the many entrances that occur all along the sidewalk through the display cases, right? And the berm, and in the corners of the berm, where people may wait for other friends or be picked up, we built into the short retaining wall, seats. At that time, we had drainage holes, but the drainage holes had been drilled in the wrong place. So since then, they have been filled and it's corrected, and no water accumulates in the seats as it shows there. And the seats are very comfortable. This is what the berm looked like. Those are the river birches. And there are about 800 of them, and each river birch is multi-stemmed. So there are like 2,000-3,000 trunks going up along that berm. And Euonymus grows as a ground cover, which is quite beautiful in southern Indiana, because in winter it turns coppery brown. Looking towards the offices of Erwin Miller, our client. And it also looks quite beautiful in the snow. This is just across the street, the main entrance, and so that the building is always part of the street. You can see the cars, you can see the reflection of the other buildings, the main stairway inside going up. And when it gets a bit darker, the same view looks like that, so that the space opens completely to the street. And from the inside, looking outwards in exactly the same view, this is what it looks like from the cafeteria. The main space at night, this was past midnight. All of these views, unfortunately, are only of 3 visits. I guess 2 of those were mine and 1 of those was Lance Baird, that we shot most of those views. So that we don't have enough record of all of the things happening in the space, because it's only 3 occasions. And I arrived there one night after midnight, and I went there and it was open, and I got those shots. So those were like 2-minute shots, and that's why they are so strange in light. And it's very early in the morning, it's also quite empty, and it feels comfortable when it's empty, like that. You can just sense the space. But it also feels very comfortable when it's full of people. And we expected to find no more than 20, 30 persons at a time. And the success of it has been way beyond ours of the commons manager's expectation. Lots of things were happening here. There were children in the playground, they were having a ping pong contest, they were preparing for a jazz concert, and you can see just people sitting around and having fun. Or, this was another occasion, and just people moving around and milling. And the purpose of the sculpture that I did not mention, which was quite critical in many of the things we did, is what do you do for the single person? How does one person can be there and not feel alone, so that you can be all by yourself and not be alone? And an element like a moving sculpture creates that relationship that if the person you are waiting is an hour late, you don't feel like a fool waiting there all by yourself. You are watching the sculpture or you are doing something. And those things are quite important to create civilized urban spaces. And this works very well like that. And there are a number of other occasions took place. This was one of the time I was there last May 1st. They had a sort of a May festival, and they had trumpeters and all sorts of things like that. Then they had a jazz concert a bit later, and a medieval ensemble some other time. And those are on that first platform or stage, and it's working quite well. And I understand they have already had several puppet shows and other performances of that type. And this was just a lecture that took place one time, and these were students of architecture that had gone to visit Columbus, and they were listening to That gentleman there is the manager of Cummins who was telling them about the town. And they also had display of craft. This is a gentleman of a carving club that was teaching people how to carve. And he's in one of those curved spaces that project into the sidewalk, so that you can also see them from the sidewalk as you move by, so that the life of the interior is also shared in the life of the sidewalk. The displayed platforms have worked very well, and the edges of the platform work also as spaces to look at the action in the main space, or indeed to see drawings like we hoped it to take place, or art objects, like this is glassware from the Albert Museum in England. And people are eating as a social function and looking towards the rest of the space and being seen as they do, or looking also towards the outside of the building. And people are sitting and waiting, or just tired, and some are very tired. And as you can see, there are small groups, and the steps do have doubled in that sense. And these are just some views taken of that space. And what is quite beautiful is that being glass, the old facades of the building form the end walls of our new space in all sides, so that the space is really circumscribed visually by the walls of the town. And that, for example, makes a most beautiful end facade. And being beyond the face of the building, although this is the north end, you have a sunlit wall ending the interior room, which is quite beautiful, and a wall much more handsome than what we could do today. That's we planted 4 southern magnolias, Magnolia grandiflorans, and that's how the magnolia reads against the perforated metal roof. And the roof is all steel. It has to be fireproofed up to a certain height because of the occupancy, but the trusses are exposed. The mullions are very thin, and there is a perforated metal screen that acts as a ceiling that is sometimes transparent, sometimes opaque, depending on the conditions of light. Many times you do see through. And the small scale of the elements that are carved in the glass, I many times have sensed this very thin curtain wall with nothing behind us, just as a sculptured soap bubble, nothing more firm than a soap bubble at that scale. Those contribute to give a very small scale to the interior of the space. Although the space is rather large, there is a sense of small scale within it that makes you feel comfortable. Also, as to make you feel very comfortable within the space, we shorten the range of colors greatly. There is no white anywhere in the space. We have not even an off-white. It's just all of the colors are on the gray-brown shade, and they go from a very light gray-brown to a very dark brown. This is the darkest color we have. We don't have any black. So that the whole range of colors is very shortened, and that just makes it feel comfortable, like an old tweedy coat. The playground works very well. This is, if you remember the plan I had drawn, the play tank, the mounts with the tunnel and the climbing elements. The play tank again. And the play tank is built into a portion of a stainless steel cylinder. And this has been much too successful because the tremendous use, in a few months of use, the children had sheared stainless steel bolts, half-inch in diameter, and they are all being rebolted and strengthened throughout. The AstroTurf, who can take the football players, is being worn out in a few months, and there is nothing tougher that we can put. The whole playground is covered with foam rubber and then with AstroTurf, so it's soft. And the interior of the plate tank. And inside the plate tank, we have tapes with sounds, recordings of submarines. In one, we have 4 tracks, one with sound recordings of submarines, one's airplanes, one's with space Apollo missions, and in the 4th one, it records their own voices and then plays them back again. And this is what it looks like typically. Almost every day just after school, it's like that. It's absolutely incredible. This is before it was finished. Those holes are still missing because the stairways and the fireman poles are missing. The tunnels unfinished. And it's just incredible. It's just absolutely unbelievable what they do. And it's the slides do not show it because there is a continuous movement. If you watch this for 5 minutes, you start to get dizzy. The kids are just all over, and it's like if it was, just everybody's birthday taking place continuously. They're climbing through places we never imagined they could climb or were supposed to, and that's a concave stainless steel wall about 10 foot high. And I have no idea how they managed to do it. This is, you can also see it as you walk through the outside. This is through the exterior of the building. That's why it's a bit hazy, because it's shot through the glass of the window, which is, the glass is all tinted brown, so it takes the light away. That's on the catwalk, and that catwalk is only accessible by climbing over the plate tank, so that we thought was going to keep the little kids away. It doesn't. And this is also seen as you walk around and you look into the playground, and you can see again some of the qualities of, these are some of the aesthetic qualities that interest us in the design of this building, which is that the reflections and the transparency of the space become intermingled, creating a single image or coexisting in the same visual space. And not only that, but you see through the building into the outside at the same time. So it's a double transparency in and through and the reflection. And even clearer in the view, I have just turned around there and looked towards the other side in that place into the main space, so that you can see the main space of the building. You can see the skylights, the roof. You can see through the building into another reality which is beyond the building, and you can see back into parts of the building itself and the tower. And these are some of the possibilities of tinted glass that interest me particularly at this time. You can see the end of the building, how the whole building becomes totally transparent, almost immaterial at that point, even more so there, where the strongest reality is the reality of the reflection on the glass, more so than the presence of the solid material itself, or again there in the very similar view. And all of those things are part of one. And indeed, in the view, the figure that is reflected upside down is as real or more real than the columns or the skylights within the space. A corner of the building, which if that glass hadn't broken and they had to replace it, it would look all very sheer and transparent and clear. And again, half of the quality or the diaphanous quality of the material is because it's transparent, and the other half because it's reflecting. And within the ramp, you are again part of the sidewalk, and you look in, you look out, and as you look out, the glass reflects again, and you see another out, different than the one you see as you look directly through the glass. And you can see through the glass the tower reflected, or in another position you can see, you saw the tower through the glass, or you can see it reflected on the glass with an almost identical presence, and that's the ramp again within it, as you can see it. Seen from above, same qualities. On the street, the building looks like that, or like that, or like that. And that's the main entrance door again. And in the inside, you can see the perforated metal ceiling, that because it's perforated, it sometimes wow. That was nice. The metal sometimes feels, the ceiling sometimes feels solid and sometimes quite transparent. And it's only about 40% perforated. Against the glass, looks almost completely transparent, and it reduces the glare. The slides do not show that quality quite as well as your eyes do, because the slides reduce the range of black and white to a much narrower range than your eyes do. But the quality of the ceiling is there. And a bit later, it looks like that. The trusses have those little lights, but those little lights are not on all the time. There is a sequence of lights, so they come in for about 10 minutes very slowly, and they are on for about 10, 15 minutes, and they go away, and you're not quite aware when they came on or when they went off, so that they keep the space lively, and they change the accent of the space from the below to the top. And as you can see, about half of those trusses are behind the ceiling, and you are seeing them through the metal, like there, all of there, or there, or there. Only less than half of the trusses actually are directly visible. Looking towards the other end, and that's again another concert was taking place at that time, and at the same time there are people eating, and at the same time there were children playing, and the sculpture happened to have been going at the very same time. And this is not yet night, as you can see, still the buildings, they have light outside. This is one of the nicest towers, of course, when the quality of light between the inside and the outside, they blend together much more closely. And looking back towards the main space, you can see the ramp, how it sweeps. And this is the last of the slides. It's interesting how blue the brown metal becomes against the sky just because of the quality of transparency. And that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions. The glass wall, I don't know if you noticed, there were very large areas that were not glass but solid. Were just spandrelite. The glass is all to the east and the north. So after 11 o'clock, we don't have any more sun shining in the space directly. You do lose quite a bit of heat at night, yes. But the temperature is not very critical in a space like that. No, most of those activities were not taking place. There is one important thing that I did not mention, is that they have engaged a manager of the space, a young girl from Minneapolis who manages the space, and she organizes those activities. She gets in touch with all sorts of groups and associations in town, and anybody that has an idea, and things are promoted and put in movement. Otherwise, none of those things were taking place. And Columbus, being in southern Indiana, has a rather miserable climate, which is very hot in summer, muggy and unpleasant, and is very cold in winter. it has only about 2 good weeks in the spring and 3 or 4 good weeks in the fall. It's just, you know, it's not untypical of that part of the country. Well, this has to do a lot with the attitudes of the people who participate. In America, we are very spoiled. Even in Southern California, if you feel that something like this may happen, you know, if this could be taking place right now in the Commons. If this was in Columbus, this talk could be in the Commons. If we were doing this in an outdoor space, you know it would be chilly even if it wasn't raining, and most people would not come. And suddenly you feel it's going to rain and the whole thing is ruined. And 2 or 3 times that happens, and that activity ceases to take place. And over there it would happen much more often, you know, because it rains a lot. And it snows, and you know, they have dust storms and all sorts of things like that. There are many things that we wish would happen in a simpler way, but they just don't. People don't do those things. But if some enough stimulus and support is provided, activities do take place, and then there is enough enthusiasm for those to spin off and happen somewhere else. You know, when the second of this festival that they had there took place, about 3/4 of the activities that were spinning from here took place in public parks and on the river. And they had some sort of a river race with small canoes for children and all sorts of things like that. But they were all had their start and their heart, their core at the Commons.
What happened to the surrounding area, the established old buildings? Economically, what happened?
Well, we thought 2 things happened, of course. One, of course, I say, is Columbus, like every other town in the country, is suffering from an economic slump, recession, whatever you want to call it. So no, sales everywhere are slow. We had expected that the business in the surrounding shops were going to suffer for about 5 years, and because all the new business would have been absorbed by the shops in the center. And after 5 years, there will start to be a spillover. But as it happened, the business picked up in all of the surrounding shops almost immediately. As I said, it's not a recovery and it's not a phenomenal increase. They were in bad shape, and they are just in not as bad a shape as they used to be. And now they are all, in the same problem that everybody else is in the country. But it has indeed brought people back into town, and they do go out from the Commons and shop in the rest of the street. Great number of the old shops around in those blocks have renovated, and shops that were ready to move into suburban shopping centers have stayed, so that the effects were very marked. Unfortunately, with this kind of remedial action takes place in a town is when the patient is almost ready to die. Not when it's still half healthy and a measure should be useful, but it's when almost is desperate these actions take place. So whatever you can achieve with this kind of measures, it's always limited, but in this particular case we were amazed by the effect it had. It's a good town, still small enough, there is a strong sense of community, and this is really what is doing it. A focus was provided on the sense of community is coming through. The center, there are 2 structures there. One is the shopping center itself, which is independent of the Commons. The space that is the Commons was donated to the city, and it's now part of their parks department. And there was an endowment given with the space that would pay for the maintenance for the first 2 or 3 years.
That's a very, very large project for
Right.
And it would be a problem like in LA and other large cities where we have large facilities for conventions and so forth. Are they going to sustain themselves, or do we have to support them with public funds?
Right.
23,000 seems like a rather ambitious project to boost business. I mean, the lifestyle obviously has been affected greatly.
Right. That was the primary purpose. The primary purpose was not to boost business. The primary purpose was to enrich the quality of life of Columbus. And it was felt that helping the business and movies and other activities stay downtown was the way to enrich the quality of life of Columbus.
But as a public place, after those 2 or 3 years are up, won't it really hit them in the pocketbook?
It will, to a degree. The space, half of its costs are paid by revenues produced within the space itself. And they would hope that, that they would get contributions and money, and there are lots of fundraising events. We will see how it takes place. The expenditures are not that great. The cost of the space was $2 million, which was donated. That's peanuts in a town, even in a town of 26,000 people. And indeed, that space would have been perfectly suitable for a town 5 times that size. Yes?
I wonder if you can explain some more about the aesthetics of the glass box and the idea of that as the building form of today, or your building form of today.
Well, I didn't say it was the building form of today. I just thought that it was a building form of today. Well, that's, yes, I like to talk, but that's a whole another talk. It's not an easy one. That's why I try to touch on some, main points of it. It's a material that is, I like it because it feels thin and light. It's not a material that depends, therefore, on its own strength and weight to be supported. It's a weightless material. It has no connotations of lasting eternally for the ages, therefore it's anti-monumental in its character. It's very temporary, passing like life itself, and it's a marvelous material because while it lasts, it's always hard and shiny and clean, and when it breaks, or you replace it, or the whole building goes down. And, No, probably not. No, this was, we felt this was a very special place in the city, that it was not an ordinary structure. It was,
well, let me ask another way. I mean, most of the buildings you show us were glass enclosures.
No.
Well, the ones that stick in my mind is San Bernardino and the office building in Oakland.
That's not glassy, that's primarily metal. And so was ComSat. So was ComSat.
Is that because you deal in a certain building type?
No. I just happen to like, as I said, the qualities of those materials and what they do and what they express. They are also, indeed, they have an expression of quality that is fresher and newer, and it has to do with the way we see things today, which is not the same way we used to see things 10 or 20 or 40 years ago. Therefore, it brings into sharp focus a new reality. But as I say, that's a long talk.
Did you do any testing on what the difference in energy usage would be in this building? Wasn't as much glass?
No. To tell you the truth, when we designed this building, nobody was concerned about energy consumption or not. All we were concerned was about the economics of it. We We figured out what the rates were, if it should be gas or electricity or oil, or, you know, and then the proper fuel was chosen accordingly, and nobody ever dreamed at that time that there was ever going to be an energy shortage.
How do you feel about it now that you know there is one?
How do I feel about what?
Now that you know that there are problems that are evident.
If I designed that building today, I would have to take care of a number of things that I didn't then. But that building took place in its time, and I mean, I cannot change the past. Yes?
I heard that you once said that you felt you were on the cutting edge of architecture. If you said that, I'd like you to explain what you feel about that.
No, I didn't say that. What I think I said, because this was not so long ago, is that I like to work at the cutting edge of architecture, which is quite different. It means that I like to work with problems that are new and not problems that are old. I don't like to be solving all problems that have already been solved.